Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Steven GetMoneyMyrick here, and I am bringing you my Theros Beyond Death pre-release primer. We're going to be going over some of the top commons and uncommons within the set today, talking a little bit about the mechanics, the decks you might face, and the goal of this video is to get you ready for the pre-release in as quick a fashion as possible. So let's get right into the cards. So the first thing I want to talk about with Theros Beyond Death is the escape mechanic. This is the new mechanic from Theros. It involves paying a cost and exiling cards from your graveyard in order to cast a card again. So here I've got two examples of an escape card. First we have Elspeth here, where you can see it's 4 white white, exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. And that'll let you cast Elspeth again, which is cool because she starts at 5 loyalty and she only has -1 abilities. So she's going to die whether by your own hands or by your opponent's, but with escape you can keep casting her from your graveyard. Phoenix of Ash, you can see here a difference that we only have to exile 3 cards for Phoenix of Ash. And you'll also see that when it escapes, it has a +1/+1 counter on it. So that tells us that some escape cards have different abilities when they escape. It's going to make for very grindy games where the graveyard is important. And really the limiting cost is probably going to be how many cards you have in your own graveyard. So especially with a sealed event, expect for grindier games and expect for some escape cards to come into play and the graveyard to be important. The next thing I wanted to discuss was the gold uncommons for the set. The gold uncommons, if you don't know, usually give us a pretty good sign about what to expect from each color pair. We're going to go over those. I'll start by saying all of them are very powerful, and once you're in a color pair, I can't imagine a world where you won't be playing these cards. But having them together really gives us an idea of what those colors are trying to do. So for Golgari, we have Acolyte of Affliction. It's a 2 black green 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield, put 2 cards from your library into your graveyard, and then you can return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So cool things about this is it puts cards in your graveyard for escape, and then it can also bring them back with a regrowth effect. So great card. Devour of Memory is a 2 mana 2/1 that when one or more cards are put into your graveyard from your library, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn and can't be blocked. And it has an activated ability to put a card from your library into your graveyard. So it's cool because it enables escape. It becomes unblockable in the late game. It could be a tempo card, it could be a late game control-y card, but definitely tell us that the mirror cares about the graveyard. For Simic, we have Utopia, the Twice Favored. This is a 3 mana 2/2 with Constellation. Constellation's ability within Theros that when you ever an enchantment enters the battlefield, something will happen. In this case, with Utopia, you'll put a +1/+1 counter on a creature and it will get flying until end of turn. So again, that's kind of telling us that Simic cares about auras, enchantments, and that it could be a little tempo-y. Next we have Hero of Nyxborn. It's 3 mana 2/2 that when it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 white human creature token. So it's basically a 3 mana, 3/3 on 2 bodies. And it also has a heroic ability that whenever you cast a spell that targets it, creatures you control, including the hero and the 1/1 token, will get +1/+0 until end of turn. So that's telling us that Boros is probably one to have a token strategy, go wide, and target your own creatures. Enchantments are a big thing in Theros Beyond Death. So auras specifically are going to be targeting your creatures, and that'll tell us that Boros wants to be looking for auras. The Izzet gold card is Mischievous Chimera. It's a 2 mana 2/2 with flying that whenever you cast your first spell during each opponent's turn, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and you get to scry 1. So what do we know about this then? That's telling us that Izzet wants to cast cards on our opponent's turns, either flash creatures or instants that you can play. For Orzhov, we have Rise to Glory, 3 white black. You can do one or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, not to your hand, and return target aura card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So I think in a deck that is prioritizing getting cards in your graveyard, this can be a very strong card. Bring back your most powerful creature, maybe bring back an aura that's a removal spell. Rise to Glory is going to be good in some grindier matchups, which you can expect a lot more of from your sealed events than from a draft format. In Selesnya, we got Siona, Captain of Pyles. When it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 7 and you can reveal an aura from among them and put them into your hand. I've heard things like if you have 6 auras, you're like 70% chance to hit, to give you an idea. And whenever an aura you control becomes attached to a creature you control, so it's not going to work with any removal auras that you put on your opponent's creatures, you'll create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So again, like with Boros, going wide tokens, auras, that's kind of telling us that maybe Naya plays well together. And also, you know, with Golgari and Dimir, that those will play well together by getting your graveyard full. And in general, just black's trying to get your graveyard full. For Rakdos, we have Slaughter Priest of Mogus. It's a 2/2 that whenever you sack a permanent, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. And then also it has an activate ability of 2, sacrifice another creature or enchantment, and it can gain first strike until end of turn. So pretty aggressive card, enables some sacrificing. There is definitely a sacrifice theme within Rakdos color pair, and there is a threaten effect, and we'll talk about that once we get to the red cards. But very aggressive card. It'll be interesting to see if black and red can be aggressive enough, and if this can be an enabler. Getting rid of your board is a big cost, but a 4/2 first striker is also a pretty powerful creature. For Azorius, we have Staggering Insight. Blue-white enchant creature. It gets +1/+1 and has lifelink, and has whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So if you can put this on an evasive threat, you know, that's going to be a lot of cards, a lot of damage getting in. Lifelink is going to make it very difficult for any Boros or Naya themed deck to outrace you. I think this is a extremely powerful card, especially if you can put it on a flyer. And then our final golden uncommon is Warden of the Chained. It's a 3-mana 4/4 with trample, but it can't attack unless you control another creature with power 4 or greater. Important to note, though, that it can block still. And it's telling us that Gruul has a theme of you want creatures with power 4 or greater, so you're really going to be looking for creatures with power 4 or greater. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about were the Omen cycles. So every color in the set has a Omen. They all have the ability, they all have flash, excuse me, and they all have the ability of 2 in their color, sacrifice it to scry 2. I anticipate that these are going to be played a ton during the pre-release. If you're playing an opponent in blue-green, I would plan on them having at least 1 copy of each of their Omens. We'll let the format shake out a little bit to figure out how great they actually are. I think Omen of the Forge, being a flash that can deal 2 damage to any target, is going to be one of the more powerful ones. Omen of the Hunt, if you need to splash a 3rd color, which splashing doesn't look great in this set, but if you have a very powerful effect like Ashiok or something, you know, you may want to be doing some Omen of the Hunt to make sure you hit your land colors. Omen of the Sun gives you tokens, so that helps with the Boros theme. Omen of the Sea, you know, you can scry 2, then draw a card. And since it has flash, it can also be played on your opponent's turn, so that can enable that Izzet theme. Omen of the Dead, I think, is probably the weakest one. But if you have a bomb creature that you're able to bring back to your hand, you know, you're going to feel really, really great about that. Devotion is also a theme within this set. And these sticking around on the battlefield are just going to help your devotion count. I think Omen of the Forge, as I mentioned, is going to be pretty powerful, especially with the auras. You know, the ability to flash in and deal 2 damage to creatures they're trying to equip it with an aura is going to be a blowout. So you need to keep your eye out if you're playing against red. Expect for them to be playing this card for sure. This is the kind of card people love to play at the start of a format. Next thing I want to talk about was the cycle of demigods that are within the set. They care about devotion, and devotion, if you don't know, is how many colored pairs, how many colored pips a card has. So this card would have 2 white devotion, this card would have 2 blue devotion because it has 2 blue symbols. My personal belief is, one second, that all of these uncommons are going to be very, very powerful, that you're going to want them in your deck. You know, Daxos is going to make it very hard for anybody to trade with you. They help with your devotion count, just getting a lot of life gain. It gets life whenever a creature enters battlefield or dies, so like every creature in a way will probably give you 2 life. Caliphie, not as excited about this one. You know, it's a 3-mana 2/3, but it makes your creatures harder to be interacted with. Timuret is going to be at least a 2-mana 2/2 that could become like a 2-mana 2/5, And I actually like this ability because you can gain life and exile 2 target cards from a graveyard, so you're going to really shut down somebody's escape plan. Annex and Renata are probably the best at what they're doing. Annex is a 3-mana 2/3, but whenever Annex or another non-token creature you control dies, create a 1/1 red Satyr token with this creature can't block. And if the creature had power 4 or greater, create 2. So if you can get 4 devotion when Annex dies, you're going to have a 4/3 that when it dies, you get 2 1/1s. And Renata is insane. Each other creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. That's not just non-token creatures, it's any creature. So if you ever got to play with Grumgully and Throne of Eldraine and know how great it is getting those +1/+1 counters, Renata's doing the same thing. I mean, it is 1 more mana, but any of these tokens you can generate are going to come in and be 2/2s. So I've talked a little bit about devotion. I want to go over some of the cards that common and uncommon that care about devotion. Just really quickly looking through it, you can see there's no red cards at all. So whenever you're thinking about a card and putting your deck, a very common thing I think people are going to say at the start of this set is, oh, well, it helps with my devotion. It's like, okay, well, if it's red and like red devotion doesn't matter at common and uncommon. It might matter for your bomb rare or mythic rare, but it's not going to make your deck, be part of an engine. So just something to keep in mind. There's different levels of how good these cards are. I would say the white is pretty strong. This Daybreak Chimera we'll talk about more later, but the ability to possibly get a 2-mana 3/3 flyer is insane. Reverent Hoplite, if you're doing a go wide, aggressive strategy, lots of 1-drops, 2-drops could be insane. 3-Nody Singer is like Fairy Duelist, that when it enters the battlefield, you can minimize a creature, and it has flash, so that helps with the is it doing things on your opponent's on your opponent's turn. Blight Breath Catoblepus is probably too small as a 3/2 6-mana creature, but it is almost a removal spell. I mean, no matter what, you're going to be able to give -2/-2 to a creature. If your devotion's higher, you can kill it. Drag to the Underworld is probably the best uncommon in the set. The ability to have a 2-mana destroy target creature at instant speed. Grey Merchant's back. Everybody's excited about him. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion and black life, and you gain life for that. So black, you can tell devotion is good. White, devotion's good. Blue, devotion's good. Green, on the other hand, I don't think either of these two cards, the Citizen Petitioner, is at all interesting. A 3-mana 2/2, that when it enters the battlefield, you gain some life. That is not exciting. Clothis' Design. Again, this card doesn't give your creatures trample. Creatures get +X until end of turn. I guess if you're going super wide with a lot of green creatures, maybe this is playable. But, for 6 mana and not giving trample, that's pretty underwhelming. Now, Nylea's Huntmaster, though, it's a 4-mana 4/3, so it's going to trigger that Gruul ability that cares about creatures 4 or greater. And it's going to pump one of your creatures. If you could have a trample creature that you can get +5/+0 to, that's just gravy and that's just gas. So when we're talking about devotion, those are the cards that common and uncommon to look out for. One of the other things in the set is Constellation. So we talked about Eutropia, the Twice Favored. Here's a list of all the cards that have the word Constellation on them. This is not a list of all the cards that just care about enchantments or that can bring enchantments back from the graveyard, or if an enchantment's played, do this. This is just specifically the Constellation keyword mechanic. But you can see it's only in 3 colors. Black and red do not have Constellations. So again, when you're thinking about like, oh, it's an enchantment to trigger this, well, for Constellation, if it's a black card, red card, they don't have Constellation things. They don't have cards with Constellation on them. In white, I like Pious Wayfarer and I like Favorite of Erois with Constellation. I think both of these cards are good and a reason to put enchantments in your deck. Captivating Unicorn is okay, but 5-mana 4/4 is not great, and you still need those enchantments. One thing that I haven't talked about, let me see if I can find any. Like these demigods, for example, they're enchantment creatures, and in Theros Beyond Death, there are enchantment creatures. So you're going to be getting enchantments, not just from normal enchantments, not just from auras, but also a lot of creatures are going to be enchantments. I think there's over 70 enchantments in the whole set. So You will be triggering this somewhat, and if you go out of your way, you'll be able to trigger it more often. Utopia, twice favored, we talked about. It's just a great reason to play auras and enchantments. The other 3 green cards, I'm not as excited about. This Citizen Skirmisher, I'm not excited about at all. Nessian Wanderer is maybe okay. Nexus Warden's pretty derpy. But those are your Constellation cards. And same thing with blue. Skullkraken is maybe the best. It's a 5 mana 3/5 that allows you to draw a card and then discard a card. Trident Wave Rider is a 4 mana 3/3 with flying. If you get Constellation and Sage of Mysteries, I'm not sure if this card is even playable. Maybe you're trying to mill yourself for escape cards. But, it's a 1 mana creature. It can block something, I guess. I guess if you have a really heavy escape deck, it could be good. But I'm more interested in the white cards, or if you're going for Utopia, if you're looking for Constellation triggers. So one other thing about this set is that it has a lot of enchantment removal at common. And when I say a lot, I mean every color has an enchantment removal spell. So in white we have Dreadful Apathy. I think this is a very strong removal spell. The ability to exile a creature later is good. In blue we have Ichthyomorphosis that turns something into 0/1 fish. This card is not as exciting to me because it's a 3 mana that still gives them a creature that can block. Mire's Grasp is probably the best common in the set. Enchant creature, it gets -3/-3 for 2 mana. That's just a solid removal spell, and if you have a way to recur it or bring it back, like that Rise to Glory, the Orzhov gold card we started with, bringing this back and killing something else, or shrinking, if you put this on 5/5, it becomes a 2/2. It's just a great card. For 4 mana, in red, we have Iroas's Blessing. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage to target creature a planeswalker opponent controls, and enchanted creature gets +1/+1. To me, I like to think of this card like Outmuscle, basically. So, think about how good Outmuscle was in Throne of Eldraine. It's going to be played pretty similar to that, where you can eliminate a creature, but you also have to be careful to not get blown out by targeting your own creature with a 4 mana spell, and then, they kill that creature. Warbriar Blessing is in green. It's a fight spell, but it boosts your creature's toughness so that it can survive the fight, which is cool. And one thing I wanted to point out is Heliod's Pilgrim in white is a 3 mana 1/2 that when it enters the battlefield, you can search your library for an aura card. So you may have better auras than this, but no matter what, if you have Heliod's Pilgrim and some of these auras, you can find and tutor for your removal spell. And if you don't need one, you can go and find a aura that buffs Heliod's Pilgrim or a better creature with evasion. But it's nice to kind of have that toolbox of getting a removal spell or getting a spell to pump your creatures. Okay, so we've talked about those. Now I kind of want to go into the colors a little bit, talk about some of the better commons and uncommons, and a few things to look out for. So in white, we've talked about Daybreak Chimera already. The ability to go 1-drop, 2-drop into this on turn 3, or even if you play that Daxos, because it has 2 devotion, you could play Daybreak Chimera on turn 3. This card in multiples is still great because it's got a high devotion, so it'll make all your future Daybreak Chimeras cheaper. Just a very solid card that I think is going to be very powerful in this set, especially if you can put that, enchantment, that Azorius enchantment that gives it +1/+1, and you draw a card, and it has lifelink. Like, I think Daybreak Chimera is great. I also like Hero of the Pride. It's a 2 mana 2/2, and whenever you cast a spell that targets it, creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn. So it's just a great enabler. I think it's going to be a strong engine for white. You're never going to be too happy about playing a 2 mana 2/2. And Dreadful Apathy we've talked about already, but it's the removal spell in white. The ability to exile creature, as I mentioned, is pretty relevant. If that card has activated abilities, you want to get it off of the board completely, or maybe it's a strong escape creature that you don't want to go to their graveyards so that they can escape it. A few other things I want to talk about in white. Revoke Existence is a 1 white sorcery, exile target artifact or enchantment. This card is most likely going to be main deck playable. A lot of people are going to be playing enchantments, and it's just going to be nice to be able to get rid of them. The fact that a lot of creatures are enchantments it makes it nice to, basically be a 2-mana removal spell. And I want to talk about Indomitable Will. I think this is one of the better auras because it has flash. It's a combat trick that will also trigger Constellation. It will, buff your creatures with Hero of the Pride. I think it's just a solid role player in the white deck. So if I was building a white deck, these are the cards I'd be looking to put into it. I also want to talk about what I believe the best uncommon is. This may be the best uncommon in the whole set between this and Drag to Underworld. But in white, you've got Banishing Light. If you've never played with this card, it's 2 and a white. Whereas the battlefield exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. So it's 3 mana, but the flexibility of being able to exile any non-land permanent is pretty powerful. For blue, it's a little difficult for me to know exactly what's going on with blue. I like Naiad of the Hidden Coves because it's a 3 mana 2/3. Not the best stats, but as long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. When you think about the Omen of the Sea, making that cost 1 less. If you think about Thirst for Meaning here with 2 and a blue, that it's only 1 in a blue, I think that's a pretty powerful effect, and it's going to make it pretty difficult for your opponent to know, like, am I supposed to play into this or not when you leave up mana. Stern Dismissal is an instant return target creature or enchantment opponent controls to its owner's hand. I think with all the auras that are going to be around, Stern Dismissal is just going to be rock solid. You're going to love having it in your deck and bouncing stuff when they go to target their auras with it. Thirst for Meaning, I just talked about, but you draw 3 and then you discard 2 unless you discard an enchantment card. Again, the ability to make it only cost 2 mana in a turn is awesome. Witness of Tomorrow is 4 and a blue for a 3/4 flyer with 3 and a blue scry 1 ability. This is a card that's just going to end the game for you. Having flying is great. It's got evasion. It will even out your draws in a board state where you can just get through to your gas. I did want to go over the common counter spells in blue, Memory Drain and Deny the Divine. Keep in mind that Naiad of the Hidden Coves will make both these spells cost 1 less. I think the fact that blue wants to be doing things on your opponent's turn, the fact that they all have instants and spells, means that counter spells are pretty real and you need to be aware of what you might be playing into. We've got Memory Drain for 2 blue for counter target spell. It's just a hard counter and you get to scry 2. And then Deny the Divine is 1 less mana, but it's only for target creature enchantment spell, and those spells will actually get exiled. So if you counter an escape creature or enchantment, it'll get exiled. As far as the best uncommon in blue, Shimmerwing Chimera at the beginning of your upkeep, return to 1 target enchantment you control to its owner's hand. If you consider even just the Omen card, Omen of the Sea, the fact that you can pick that up every turn and keep drawing cards with it, it's just a really powerful effect. And it's a 4 mana 3/2 flyer. So I like this card a lot. In black, we have Discordant Piper. We've got Discordant Piper. I don't think this is the strongest black card. I think that goes to Mire's Grasp, but I do like Discordant Piper for the Rakdos Sacrifice deck. I like that it's aggressive. The fact that it leaves a body around when it dies isn't completely irrelevant, and I just think he's going to be a solid card in the black decks. Final Death is 4 and a black. It is an instant to exile target creature, so it's nice that it's instant, and it's nice that it exiles. So again, getting rid of those cards so that they can't escape with them. Funeral Rites, draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, and put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. I think that's sick. I don't know what else to say. The fact that it puts 2 in your graveyard helps with milling yourself for escaping. Drawing cards is great. I think, for people that don't know, when you're playing sealed, you want to be playing some of the most powerful cards you can because games have a tendency to stall out. And black brings the removal, and black brings, the card draw with Funeral Rites or the milling yourself to play escape so that when the game goes long, you can outlast your opponent. And I think black will be a strong color to be playing in your sealed paired with some other color. I like Lampad of Death's Vigil. It's 1 of black for 1/3, and it's just a sacrifice outlet. I like sacrifice outlets because it makes it hard for your opponent to figure out what they're going to remove, and you're always getting some value out of something. And we talked about Mire's Grasp. It's the best common in the set. 1 of black, enchant creature gets -3/3. And we talked about Drag to the Underworld. It's the best uncommon in the set, maybe between this and Banishing Light. But the ability that it could potentially be black, destroy target creature as an instant is just nuts. And these are the cards you want to be putting in your deck. For red, we've got Hero of the Games. It's a 3-mana 3/2 that whenever you cast a spell that targets Hero of the Games creatures you control, get +1/+0 until end of turn. So again, having that heroic ability, Hero of the Pride and Boros, putting all your heroes together. If it has the word hero in it, it's got that ability. And pumping your team and going wide are just going to be good strategies. I like Incendiary Oracle because at its worst, it's a 2-mana 2/2, but it also has the ability to pump its attack. And if a creature was dealt damage by it this turn, would die, exile it instead. So, it has the ability to take out an escape creature. Again, exiling is just going to be an important effect within the set. We've also talked about Ros's Blessing, but this is a card I'm very excited about. Just you have to be aware to not get blown out by your opponent and play into open mana, where this would feel very terrible if it didn't actually hit on your creature. I did want to talk about Portent of Betrayal. This is the threaten effect within the set. It's 4 mana, unfortunately, instead of Active Treason, which is usually 3. But you do get to gain control of target creature until end of turn. So you take control of your opponent's creature, and then you have a sack outlet like Lamphead's a Dutch Vigil. That's 5 mana to basically take out your opponent's creature. That's pretty expensive, but there is that effect within the set, so I wanted to call it out. And maybe if you get like 2 of these and a bunch of Lampheads, you can do some pretty sick things. The best uncommon in red, I think, is going to be Fateful End. 2 in a red, deal 3 damage to any target, scry 1. Again, it's instant. I think the ability to blow out your opponent when they go to target a creature with an aura is going to be huge in this set. So when they have their 4/3, their 5/3, their 3/3, they go to put a enchantment aura on it, and you just say nope. That's going to be a very powerful play. And the more expensive their enchantment is, like a Rose's Blessing, the better it's going to feel eliminating that creature. And finally, I'm going to talk about green. Some of their better commons. Elysian Caryatid is 1 in a green for 1/1 that taps, add 1 mana of any color. If you control a creature of power 4 or greater, add 2 mana of any one color. I just like, mana dorks, and I like mana fixing, and I'm going to play this card as much as I can. I actually put Return to Nature as one of the better commons in green. It has 2 relevant abilities, the ability to destroy an enchantment at instant speed or exile target card from a graveyard. Again, if you're going up in a sealed pool against a bomb mythic rare with escape, don't ignore that ability to just exile that card from the graveyard so they can't keep bringing it back. Citizen Training is an enchantment that I like. It's 1 in a green, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. So immediately it replaces itself, and target creature gets +1/+0 and has trample. So when you're playing green and you got a bunch of big guys, with 4 attack, but they don't have trample, this is the way you give them trample. The fact that it replaces itself is just, great. We talked about Warbriar Blessing some. It's the fight spell within green. Nylea's Forerunner is a 4 green 5/3 with trample. Other creatures you control have trample, so this is another way to give your creatures trample. If you pair with red and you got some red tokens that you're pumping and going wide, or you've got some big green fatties like this Voracious Typhon right here. Typhon, right? Not Typhoon. Typhon. Voracious Typhon. You're going to need to give him trample. Yes, it has 3 toughness, which is awkward. It can be blocked by a 3/3. But the fact that it gives other creatures trample is still just, that's an extra ability that you want on your creatures. And Voracious Typhon is a 4 mana 4/4 with escape 7, exile 4 of the cards, and it comes back as a 7/7. So it's got the 4 power to trigger the abilities that care about 4 power. And the fact that it can keep coming back as a 7/7 is going to be very difficult for your opponent to deal with unless they're able to exile it. One other card I want to talk about was Destiny Spinner, and this is an uncommon. I did want to also say, I know I've been saying the best uncommons. I have not been including the demigods in this. Like the Renata and Anax are probably the best uncommons in their colors. Renata definitely, in my opinion, is better than Destiny Spinner. So these are the best uncommons that were not in that demigod cycle. But Destiny Spinner is 2 mana 2/3, so automatically, that's just great. And creatures and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. That's just a plus side. It's probably not too relevant in limited, but if you're going up against a blue deck, they're going to feel pretty bad when they can't counter your stuff. And it has a mana seek ability that 3 and a green, target land you control becomes an XX elemental creature with trample and haste until end of turn, versus the number of enchantments you control. So if you're putting this in a dedicated enchantment deck, it's just a big creature, and it's just a 2-mana 2/3, so what's not to like about it? So that's the end of my primer for the Theros Beyond Death pre-release. I hope you feel a little more comfortable going into your pre-release and knowing what cards to look out for. Again, I would just go over this list of cards I went through and say, okay, these are the cards I want in my deck. Try to have a plan. Are you going to go aggressive with some Naya colors and auras, or are you going to be a little more grindy with some Sultai colors? But good luck out there, and let me know how it goes. Bye.